Emma Thorne climbed the rocky path as dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. The forbidden mountains rose before her like ancient guardians, their peaks touching the clouds. Most villagers avoided this place, believing old stories about dangerous creatures that lived among the cliffs. But Emma had always been curious about the truth behind the legends. She carried a basket of medicinal herbs and fresh water. For 3 days now, she had been making this journey in secret. 3 days since she discovered something that changed everything she thought she knew about the world. The cave entrance appeared between two massive boulders. Emma paused and listened carefully. She heard the sound she had come to recognize, a low, rumbling breath like distant thunder. She stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. "Seraphine," she called softly. "It's me. I brought supplies." A massive shape moved in the shadows. Scales the color of midnight blue caught the morning light that filtered through cracks in the cave ceiling. The dragon emerged slowly, her movements careful and pained. Seraphine was magnificent, even injured. Her wings, torn and bloodied, folded against her sides. Her amber eyes fixed on Emma with a mixture of caution and growing trust. Behind Seraphine, 3 smaller dragons huddled together. They were young, barely the size of horses, with scales that shimmered in shades of green, silver, and deep purple. These were Seraphine's children, and they watched Emma with wide, fearful eyes. "How was your wing today?" Emma asked, unpacking her basket. She pulled out clean bandages and a jar of healing salve she had made from mountain flowers and tree bark. Seraphine lowered her great head. When she spoke, her voice resonated through the cave like a song made of stone and wind. "It heals slowly, small one. Your medicines work better than our own remedies. I do not understand why you help us." Emma approached the dragon's injured wing, moving with the confidence that came from 3 days of practice. "Because you needed help. That's reason enough." She began unwrapping the old bandages. The wounds were deep, caused by iron arrows tipped with poison. Emma had learned that iron hurt dragons more than any other metal, and the poison prevented their natural healing. The hunters who attacked Seraphine's clan knew exactly how to cause maximum damage. "The hunters came in the night," Seraphine said quietly as Emma worked. "We were sleeping in our valley home, far from human settlements. We never bothered your kind. We hunted wild animals, we taught our young the old songs, we lived in peace. But they came with fire and iron, shouting that dragons were too dangerous to exist." Emma felt anger rise in her chest. She applied fresh salve to the wounds, her touch gentle despite her emotions. "Not all humans think that way. Some of us remember the old stories differently. My grandmother used to tell me that dragons once helped humans, that we lived side by side before fear drove us apart." One of the young dragons crept closer. This was Opal, the smallest, with scales like polished silver. She had been the most curious about Emma from the beginning. Opal sniffed at the medicinal herbs, her small nostrils flaring. "Can I try?" Emma asked, holding out a piece of dried meat she had brought. Opal looked at her mother. Seraphine nodded slightly. The young dragon took the meat with surprising gentleness, her sharp teeth never touching Emma's hand. Joy sparkled in Opal's eyes as she ate. "Your kindness is rare among your species now," Seraphine observed. "Once, there were many humans like you. My grandmother remembered those times. She said humans and dragons built great things together, cities that touched the sky, gardens that bloomed year-round. But that was many generations ago." Emma finished bandaging the wing. "Maybe it could be that way again. Maybe trust has to start somewhere." A sound echoed from outside the cave. Voices. Emma's heart raced. She moved quickly to the entrance and peered out. 3 men were climbing the path, and she recognized them immediately. Hunters from the village, led by Thomas Blackwood, a cruel man who made his fortune selling dragon parts to collectors and scholars. "Stay quiet," Emma whispered urgently to the dragons. "Don't make any sound." She stepped out of the cave and positioned herself in front of the entrance, trying to look casual. Thomas and his men spotted her immediately. They approached with suspicion written on their faces. "Emma Thorne," Thomas said, his voice rough as gravel. What are you doing up here? These mountains are forbidden. I could ask you the same question, Emma replied, keeping her voice steady. I'm collecting herbs for medicine. What's your excuse? Thomas's eyes narrowed. He was a large man with scars across his face from past hunts. We're tracking dragons. We wounded some 3 days ago. They came this direction. You seen anything unusual? Just rocks and birds, Emma lied. Why would dragons come up here? There's nothing but empty caves. One of the hunters, a younger man named Peter, studied her carefully. You've got blood on your sleeve. Emma glanced down. He was right. Dragon blood, darker than human blood, stained her shirt. She thought quickly. I cut myself on sharp rocks. Mountain terrain is dangerous if you're not careful. Thomas stepped closer, his hand resting on the sword at his belt. I don't believe you. Step aside. We're going to search that cave. No. Emma stood her ground, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. This is my family's land. You have no right to search it. Your family abandoned these mountains generations ago, Thomas sneered. They're free territory now. Behind Emma, she heard movement in the cave. Seraphine was shifting position, probably sensing danger. If the dragons revealed themselves, there would be a fight. Emma knew she couldn't let that happen. I said no. Emma repeated, louder this time. Leave now, or I'll report you to the village council for trespassing and harassment. The 3 hunters exchanged glances. Thomas looked ready to push past her, but Peter grabbed his arm. Come on, Thomas. It's just a girl collecting herbs. We'll search the other caves. There's dozens of them in these mountains. Thomas glared at Emma for a long moment. Then he spat on the ground at her feet. You're hiding something. When I prove it, you'll be arrested for harboring dangerous creatures. That's a hanging offense. The hunters turned and walked away, but Emma knew they would be back. She watched until they disappeared down the mountain path. Only then did she allow herself to breathe properly. When she turned back to the cave, Seraphine stood at the entrance, her massive form filling the space. The dragon's amber eyes glowed with an emotion Emma couldn't quite name. You risked everything for us, Seraphine said softly. You could have stepped aside. You could have let them find us. Instead, you stood between danger and my children. Why? Emma met the dragon's gaze. Because it was the right thing to do. Because you're a mother protecting her children, just like any human mother would. Because the stories my grandmother told me said that dragons were wise and kind, and I believed her. I still do. Seraphine lowered her head until she was eye level with Emma. Then I make you this promise, Emma Thorne. My clan will never forget your courage. From this day forward, you are Dragon Friend, the first in many generations. Whatever you need, wherever you go, if any of my kind hear your call, they will come to your aid. Emma felt tears in her eyes. She reached out slowly and placed her hand on Seraphine's scaled snout. The dragon's skin was warm, like sun-heated stone. We need to move you somewhere safer. The hunters will come back with more men. I know a place deeper in the mountains where there are caves they don't know about. We are too weak to fly, Seraphine admitted. My children cannot carry me, and I cannot make the journey alone. Then I'll get help, Emma decided. Someone I trust. Give me until tomorrow morning. As Emma prepared to leave, Opal approached and rubbed her silver head against Emma's leg like an affectionate cat. The young dragon's purr sounded like gentle rain on leaves. Emma smiled and scratched behind Opal's ear ridges. Tomorrow, Emma promised, I'll bring help, and we'll find you a real sanctuary. She left the cave and began the journey back to the village, her mind racing with plans. There was only one person she could trust with his secret, one person who had always believed in doing what was right no matter the cost. His name was David Rivers, and he had been her closest friend since childhood. If anyone would help her protect the dragons, it would be him. Emma just hoped she could reach him before the hunters returned with reinforcements. The sun climbed higher as Emma descended the mountain, and with it rose a new determination. She had made her choice. She would stand with the dragons, no matter what it cost her. Some things were worth fighting for, and protecting innocent lives was at the top of that list. Behind her, hidden in their cave, Seraphine watched the human girl disappear down the path. For the first time in days, The dragon felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. Emma found David in his workshop at the edge of the village. He was a craftsman, skilled with wood and metal, creating tools and furniture that people came from distant towns to buy. The workshop smelled of sawdust and oil, familiar scents that reminded Emma of simpler times when their biggest worry was climbing trees and exploring streams. David looked up from the table. He was sanding, his green eyes brightening when he saw her. He was tall and strong from years of working with his hands, with dark hair that always seemed slightly messy. They had grown up together, sharing secrets and dreams, though lately Emma had noticed the way he looked at her had changed. There was something warmer in his gaze, something that made her heart flutter. "Emma," he said, setting down his tools. "You look worried. What happened?" She closed the workshop door and checked to make sure no one was nearby. "I need to tell you something, and you have to promise to hear me out before you react." David's expression grew serious. "You're scaring me. What's going on?" Emma took a deep breath. 3 days ago, I found dragons in the Forbidden Mountains. A mother and her 3 children. They were wounded by hunters, barely alive. I've been helping them, bringing medicine and food. But the hunters are still looking for them. Thomas Blackwood and his men came today. Allied to protect the dragons, but they'll be back with more people. I need help moving the dragons to a safer location. She expected shock, maybe fear, possibly anger. Instead, David was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he smiled, a soft expression that reached his eyes. "Of course you found injured dragons and decided to save them. That's exactly who you are." Emma felt relief wash over her. "You believe me?" Just like that. "Emma, I've known you since we were 5 years old. You've always had the biggest heart of anyone in this village. Remember when we were children and you found that injured hawk? You nursed it back to health even though your parents said it was a waste of time. You cried when it finally flew away because you were happy it was free again." He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "If you say these dragons need help, then they need help. I'm with you." The warmth of his touch sent tingles through Emma's arms. She looked up at him, seeing the boy she had grown up with and the man he had become. "This is dangerous, David. If we're caught, we could be executed. The village laws are clear about helping dragons." "Then we won't get caught," he said simply. "Tell me what you need." Emma explained everything. The extent of Seraphine's injuries, the 3 young dragons, the cave's location, and her plan to move them deeper into the mountains where ancient caverns existed. Places their grandparents had spoken of, hidden valleys where water flowed year-round and game was plentiful. David listened carefully, already thinking like the builder he was. "We'll need supplies. A cart that can handle rough terrain. Strong rope. More medical supplies. And we'll have to make multiple trips because there's no way a cart can carry a full-grown dragon. Seraphine can walk if we support her," Emma said. "The young ones can travel on their own. We just need to create a path they can follow safely." They spent the rest of the afternoon planning. David sketched maps based on Emma's descriptions, marking safe routes and noting where the terrain would be most challenging. As they worked side by side, their hands occasionally brushed against each other, sending small sparks of awareness through both of them. "Why are you really doing this?" Emma asked quietly as the sun began to set. "You could say no. You could stay safe." David set down his pencil and turned to face her fully. "Because you asked me to. Because it's the right thing to do. And because—" He hesitated, then continued with quiet intensity. "Because I care about you, Emma. More than I probably should. If this is important to you, then it's important to me." Emma felt her cheeks warm. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken feelings. "David, A sharp knock on the workshop door made them both jump. David quickly gathered up the maps and hid them under a pile of wood shavings. Emma moved to appear casual, examining a half-finished chair. The door opened and Peter, one of the hunters from earlier, stepped inside. His eyes moved between Emma and David with barely concealed suspicion. "Evening, David." "Emma, didn't expect to find you two together." "Emma came to order a new bookshelf," David said smoothly, "for her grandmother's collection." "What can I do for you, Peter?" Peter leaned against the doorframe, his posture deliberately relaxed but his eyes sharp. "Thomas wants me to ask around about dragon sightings. Someone in the village has been buying unusual amounts of medical supplies. Herbs that are good for treating wounds. The kind of wounds dragons might have. Emma's blood ran cold, but she kept her face neutral. Half the village buys medical supplies. People get hurt all the time. Why are you really here? Because Thomas thinks you're hiding something, Peter said bluntly. He wants to search your grandmother's house tomorrow. He's getting the village council to approve it. That's illegal without proof of wrongdoing, David interjected. Thomas doesn't care much about legal these days, Peter replied. He's got most of the council convinced that dragons near the village are a threat. They're scared, and scared people do stupid things. He paused at the door. I'm telling you this because I don't trust Thomas. He's not doing this for the village's safety. He's doing it because dragon parts sell for a fortune. If you know something, Emma, be careful. Thomas is killed for less than what a full-grown dragon is worth. With that warning, Peter left. Emma and David stared at each other in the dim workshop light. We have to move them tonight, Emma said urgently. If Thomas searches my grandmother's house, he'll find my notes, my maps. He'll know where the cave is. David nodded, already moving. I'll get the supplies together. You go to your grandmother, tell her everything. She'll need to be prepared if Thomas comes. They met at the base of the Forbidden Mountains 3 hours later, when the moon was high and most of the village slept. David had brought a sturdy cart, rope, lanterns, and enough supplies to last a week. Emma carried her medical bag and food for both dragons and humans. The climb was harder in darkness, but they didn't dare use the lanterns until they were far from the village. When they finally reached the cave, Emma called out softly, "Seraphine, it's Emma. I brought help." The dragon emerged, her eyes glowing in the moonlight. Behind her came the 3 young ones, nervous but curious. Opal recognized Emma immediately and bounded forward with a happy chirp. Seraphine's gaze fixed on David. Another human. How do I know he can be trusted? Because I trust him, Emma said simply. David, this is Seraphine and her children. Seraphine, this is David Rivers. He's risked everything to help you. David bowed respectfully, something he had seen in old illustrations of how humans once greeted dragons. Lady Seraphine, it's an honor. Emma told me of your plight. We've come to take you somewhere safer. Seraphine studied him with ancient eyes. Then, slowly, she bowed her head in return. You speak with courtesy rare in these times. I accept your help, David Rivers. The journey to the hidden valley took all night. David and Emma walked on either side of Seraphine, supporting her when the terrain grew difficult. The 3 young dragons followed, with Opal staying close to Emma. The silver dragon had clearly claimed Emma as her favorite human. As they traveled, Seraphine told them stories. Stories of the old times when dragons and humans built cities together, when dragon fire forged the strongest metals and human ingenuity created wonders. She spoke of the breaking, when fear and greed poisoned the alliance, when dragons were hunted for their scales and bones and blood. My grandmother's grandmother remembered the last human friend, Seraphine said, as they rested near a stream. Her name was forgotten over time, but the dragons called her Lightbringer because she refused to let the darkness of hatred consume her. She saved 3 dragon eggs when hunters destroyed a nesting ground. She raised those hatchlings in secret, taught them to trust again. Those 3 dragons became the ancestors of my clan. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Your grandmother's grandmother's friend sounds like someone worth remembering. She was, Seraphine agreed. And now, centuries later, I meet another like her. History moves in circles, perhaps. Perhaps this is a new beginning. Dawn was breaking when they finally reached the hidden valley. It was exactly as Emma's grandmother had described it. A place protected by high cliffs, with a waterfall feeding a clear lake, meadows full of wild grass, and caves that went deep into the mountain. Trees grew thick along the slopes, providing cover from above. It's perfect, David breathed, seeing it for the first time. The dragons explored their new home with growing excitement. Even Seraphine seemed lighter, her pain momentarily forgotten in the joy of finding sanctuary. The young dragons splashed in the lake, their happy sounds echoing off the cliffs. Emma and David set up a camp near one of the smaller caves. They would need to stay for a few days to make sure the dragons settled safely and that Seraphine's wounds continued healing properly. As they worked together gathering firewood and preparing food, David caught Emma's hand. She looked up at him, her heart racing at the touch. "Emma," he said softly, "I need to tell you something. I've been wanting to say this for months, but I was always too afraid. But after tonight, after everything we've risked together, I can't keep quiet anymore." He took a deep breath. "I love you. I've loved you for years. You're the bravest, kindest, most amazing person I've ever known." Emma felt joy burst through her chest like sunlight. "David, I love you too. I think I always have." He pulled her close and kissed her gently. It was a kiss full of promise, of hope, of two hearts finally acknowledging what they had always felt. When they pulled apart, Emma was smiling so wide her cheeks hurt. Opal chose that moment to interrupt, nudging between them with a playful chirp. The silver dragon looked between them with what could only be described as approval. "I think she's happy for us," Emma laughed. "Smart dragon," David grinned. But their happiness was short-lived. As the sun rose higher, they heard it, the distant sound of many voices, of dogs barking, of an organized hunt. Thomas Blackwood had found their trail. Seraphine appeared at the cave entrance, her expression grim. "They come. The hunters have followed us." Emma and David looked at each other, then down at the valley entrance where movement could be seen in the trees. At least 20 men were approaching, armed with bows, swords, and nets. "We need to hide you," Emma said urgently. "No." Seraphine's voice was firm. "No more hiding. No more running. My children and I have fled far enough. If they want us, they will have to face us. But I will not let them harm you too. You have given us everything. Now we protect you." The three young dragons emerged from the lake, taking positions beside their mother. Despite their youth and fear, they stood ready to fight for their new friends. David grabbed Emma's hand. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Emma squeezed back. Together. The hunters entered the valley, Thomas Blackwood at their lead. His eyes glinted with greed as he saw not one, but 4 dragons. Well, Emma Thorne and David Rivers. You've led us to quite a prize. Surrender now, and maybe the council will be merciful. Merciful like you were to Seraphine's clan? Emma called back. You attacked them while they slept. Killed their family. For what? Money. Thomas laughed coldly. Dragons are monsters. I'm doing the world a favor by eliminating them. The fact that I profit from it is just a bonus. From the cliffs above, something moved. Emma looked up and gasped. More dragons were descending, at least a dozen of them, their scales flashing in various colors. At their lead was a magnificent silver dragon, larger even than Seraphine, with eyes like starlight. The silver dragon landed between the hunters and the valley, her voice ringing out like a crystal bell. I am Celestia, elder of the mountain clans. I heard Seraphine's call for aid, and I have brought my kin. We have avoided humans for generations, hiding in the highest peaks. But no more. Today, we stand with those who chose courage over fear. Celestia's gaze fell on Emma and David. You two humans have shown more honor than your entire species has shown in centuries. For that, you have our gratitude and our protection. Thomas and his hunters faced an impossible choice: retreat or attack a force that vastly outnumbered them. Slowly, fear overcoming greed, they began to back away. This isn't over, Thomas snarled. The whole kingdom will hear about this. They'll send armies. Then let them come, Celestia replied calmly. And let them learn what happens when they threaten dragon friends. As the hunters fled, Emma felt David's arm around her waist, felt the warmth of his presence. Around them, dragons and humans stood together for the first time in centuries. Whatever came next, they would face it together. A new alliance had been born, and with it, hope for a different future.